Welcome back to Two Teens, Parenting Authentically Through the Seasons with Betty and Ellie. You may have seen those videos going around where parents start an old phrase many of us have heard growing up and their kids finish it. The parents say something like, I'll give you something too. And the child immediately finish the sentence with something very innocent. It's funny, but it's also fascinating because what those moments remind us is that the patterns our children inherit are the ones we practice every day. The language we heard as children, the tone our parents used, the way conflict, or big emotions were handled, all of it becomes part of the script that we carry forward. In our last episode, we talked about how parents begin to notice those inherited patterns and how the work of breaking generational cycles begins. But today, we want to shift the focus because breaking a pattern is only half the story. In today's episode, what's possible when we shift generational patterns? The real question is what comes next? If we are not repeating the old chain, what new chain are we building instead? What are those words, the reactions, the moments our children will one day finish for us? In this episode, we are exploring the possibilities. How parents begin to create new family patterns rooted in connection, emotional safety, and intentional leadership. Because the patterns we start today are the ones our children will carry forward tomorrow. And my name is Betty Arteaga-Muriel. I am the founder of Your Parenting Story, and I work with driven, high achieving parents who are thriving in their careers and their outside world, but feel overwhelmed and disconnected at home. And I help them move from surviving family life to leading their families with strength, compassion, and connection. And with me today, I have Ellie. Hi, Ellie. How you doing today?
Hi, Betty. I'm so excited to be here again. I'm Ellie Knott of Ellie Chase Coaching. I'm a preschool teacher turned parent coach, and I help parents of young children who are feeling overwhelmed with all of the noise of what they feel like they should be doing find their most authentic parenting path so they can raise their kids with more confidence, connection, and joy. And today, I want to say something that you might laugh at immediately when you hear it is that kids do listen to us.
Yes.
Right? And right off the bat, you're probably thinking, My kid hasn't listened to me once yet today." However, I'm going to challenge that idea just a little bit. They may not listen to us in the conventional sense, or maybe what we're thinking of, well, they didn't actually follow the direction or they didn't follow through on what I asked them to do. They seem like they're ignoring me. They don't even look like they're even is anyone home in there, right? But they are hearing your voice, and that is getting coded into their brains and into their systems, right? And so, in a little bit, Betty will share an example with us of how that starts to happen. And even when you don't think they're listening, things happen later that you realize, oh, they're hearing what I'm saying. Maybe they're not doing what I want them to do, but they are taking it all in all the time. And that's what children's brains are wired to do and their nervous systems are wired to do, is to take it all in and figure out, what is this world that I'm living in, right? What is my place in it? How do I react to things? How do the people around me respond to me? Right, taking in all of that information. So your kids do listen to you, and the things that they are hearing and they're observing from you, those are shaping their inner voice, right? That inner voice that is going to talk to them now, it's going to talk to them through their development. And then when they're an adult, right? And when they find themselves raising their own kids and hearing your voice come out, right? Like we talked about in our last episode, how all of a sudden you hear your parents' voice come out, even when you didn't want it to. the same thing is going to happen for them. So we're getting really intentional now about how we're shaping that inner voice. Betty, do you want to share a little bit about your own experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I was starting with which patterns I'm identifying or I'm aware they were something that were used in my family as protective mechanisms, and which ones I want to carry forward. There's one that I did not even think about it until it was brought up, and that was part of what we talked on the last episode with the repair. So I was with my daughter, and we had a conflict. Let's call it that. We had a conflict. We were talking, and it was not resolved at the moment. We both still had very deep feelings about it. So when we started talking and this and that, I opened the space for her to give feedback, right? To be able to tell me your side of the story, because it is very obvious that we're both still activated. We're feeling a certain way about this. And what she told me almost had me floor. She said, "Well, I'm mad because you still haven't apologized to me." Wait, what? What do you mean apologize to you, right? That was my first thought. What do I owe you an apology for? Like, what are you talking about? But then I kept thinking, and what I told her was, you know that most parents don't apologize, right? Like, I never received an apology for my parents. And her answer was even more, she said, "Yes, but you do. You apologize." And in that moment, I didn't feel it as deep. But as I continue with this work, I'm like, that is a shame that didn't even know I was breaking. And is the accountability shame, the repair shame, the, you know what, I am going to take responsibility for what happened in this moment from my perspective, and how apologizing and talking about it help us move forward, to the point where my daughter was very much calling me out, in the sense of, you're not acting like yourself, you're not being yourself. Who basically is like, who are you? And I'm angry because this is not the mom that I've come to know, right? This is not the pattern that I'm used to from you. And to her, it was really big, because me being able to apologize and the way that we repair does link with her safety. She might, if she feels safe in a conflict and talking, because she is counting on that repair. And that's definitely the biggest surprise in cycle softening that I've had.
I love that awareness. And it really does show, you as the parent, you're shaping your child's expectations for those relationships, for what happens in conflict. And now she has this, you could say it's even some of her like self worth belief of, I'm worthy of receiving an apology when somebody does something that, hurt my feelings, or, whatever, any sort of conflict that's happening. And it doesn't mean that, you're a bad parent, or, that you like have to bow down to your kid or anything, right? Like, you're still the parent and they're still the child, but they do deserve that same respect that you would expect your child to apologize, right? When they make a mistake. And so it's that back and forth. And so now you're actually modeling that repair, you're modeling giving an apology, and that gives space for both of you to do that together, to repair the relationship, instead of it being a one-sided thing that you're the kid and you made the mistake and you need to apologize, but I'm the parent and I don't apologize. Right? And so that's really cool that, your daughter, you didn't even realize she was making those expectations and learning that from you, but when you slipped back into your old pattern, she was able to call you on it. and you had that foundation of that relationship where you were able to hear that from her, right? And actually take it into account. Instead of being like, oh wait, no, we're focusing on you. You're the one that made the mistake. We don't need to talk about me. And then that opened up that space and it allowed things to repair more naturally and allowed you guys to move on and get through it. Some more, examples of what happens when we rewrite these generational patterns. What if they grow up hearing, what's your plan? Instead of, be careful. What could that do for your child's nervous system that is so delicate, that is, growing and learning? When should I be scared? When is it safe? Right? The message that that's going to send to their system of, what's your plan? That sends it now into their heads of, okay, what is my plan, right? I'm going to start thinking logically. Maybe they didn't have a plan before you said that, but now that you said that, they're going to go into their head and they're going to start thinking about what is the plan. And it's also going to help them direct back to that inner voice, right? Of knowing, like, is this a risky move, right? Is this something I want to do? Is this something I feel comfortable doing? As opposed to, be careful. Now all of a sudden they're like looking around, where's the danger? Right? And instead of learning to trust their gut and to problem solve and to think critically, they're just learning to, oh gosh, I need to be on guard. I need to be looking for the danger because mom or dad thinks that there's imminent danger. They're telling me, be careful. Right? If they grow up hearing, and this one is a really subtle difference, this one is a change of where we're coming from and a change in tone of how it comes out, right? So maybe the pattern that you grew up with was, why are you doing that? And if we change that to, I'm so curious, why are you doing that? It opens up a space for conversation, right? And for truly figuring out, why did I do that? And we can, when we treat ourselves that way and we can start treating our children that way, we can learn so much more about ourselves. And that's where we can actually grow and make the changes, right? Which is ultimately what we're trying to help our children do, is to grow into the best people that they can be. So when we make that little shift, I'm so curious, why are you doing that? Now we open up for conversation. We open up for something new to happen. What about if they grow up hearing, hey, you seem frustrated. This is really hard. Let's take a break and then we'll try again. Instead of, here, let me do it. Now they're learning what to do when things get hard. And right now, maybe it's tying their shoes or, opening a container, right? Something really simple. But we say, oh, well, here, let me do it. As soon as they get frustrated, they learn that when things get hard, they should look outside of themselves. They should give up. They probably can't do it anyways. But when we stay with them and we change that a little bit of, we could take a break. What else can we try here? Right? Now they're learning when things get hard, I take a step back, I take a breath, I could try again, I could ask for help. And this is going to translate, like, it might not seem a big deal, right? When we're tying shoes, but it's going to translate down the road, right? Because we're creating that inner voice. So now when they are 16 and they've just learned how to drive and they, break down on the side of the road, right? They get a flat tire or something. And, maybe some stranger comes along and is like, oh, I'll help you, whatever. And they know, I can trust my gut and I don't necessarily feel safe with this stranger helping me, right? I'm going to call my mom for help instead of feeling like I need to do this on my own, or whatever it is, however that pattern has come through. They are able to trust their gut and be like, how can I fix this situation, right? Whether it's calling the tow truck or calling you to come help them. So it's in those bigger situations that this is coming through. Another one, and I grew up with this of like, you don't treat your brother like that. You don't treat your sister like that. Say sorry. Say sorry and go play. Okay. What if instead they hear, oh, we don't hit. What happened here? Let's figure this out together. And again, we can start getting more information of why did you hit, right? Again, that like, I'm so curious. Why did you hit, right? Did your sister take something from you? Um, were they getting in your space? Were they not listening to you, what you were saying? And then we can actually start building the teamwork. And then we can come back to the repair, just like you talked to us about, Betty. Um, Instead of, we don't do that, say sorry, get over it, right? It's just that, like, move on. Let's make this disappear as fast as possible. And then we're not learning so much. And then it's hard to figure out how to give an authentic apology, right? Because again, when we get older, it gets more complicated, right? We're dating, or we're, with our best friends, or with our partners, or whatever it is, or with a boss or with a coworker. And things are a lot more serious. And if we just say sorry but don't really mean it and just try to move on, that may not fix things. But when we have those skills of, we're actually going to stop, we're going to talk about it, share how we're feeling, figure out how to solve this problem, we're learning, okay, how do I make the connection, make the repair, and do this in a, authentic and vulnerable way, as opposed to just rushing through it. Right, so there's so many things that can be learned from any pattern. It might be, again, the beliefs, the self-worth, the how we interact in relationships, right? There's so many different things, so these examples might feel all over the place, but it just goes to show that generational patterns, they impact every part of our life. They really do. And so, again, we get to do this work of slowly starting to figure out which ones are not vibing with us and which ones we want to create something new. So, the ones that I said may not resonate for you, and they're going to be different for everyone, right? So, it's just that work we get to do of taking a look, figuring it out, and just going step by step and slowly making those changes. Um, but you deserve this, right? You deserve to figure out, what is the legacy I want to leave? How do I want my child's nervous system to respond when they're in situations that are really hard, or they're in conflict, or they're having big emotions? What do I want them to believe about themselves? How do I want them to be able to communicate with others? All of these things, right? So that was a lot for today. But if you are loving these conversations, if you are ready to start figuring out what are your generational patterns and how are you going to change them, I would love to connect with you. Reach out. You can go to my website, elliechasecoaching.com, and you can go to the contact page, send me an email, sign up for a free curiosity call so we can start getting to know each other, see how I could support you. You can sign up for my newsletter so you can get these podcast episodes right into your inbox, along with some other little tips and tricks of parenting or activities for young children. And then you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Ellie Chase Coaching. And Betty, how can parents find you?
Yes, if you're feeling that pull to grow in the way you show up in your parenting, I would love to connect with you. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at your underscore parenting underscore story, where I share tools, reflections, and resources for driven, high achieving parents who want their parenting to reflect both their fierce leadership and compassion. You can also visit yourparentingstory.com for resources, more information about my work, and to schedule a free curiosity call where we can explore what's coming up in your parenting and what support might look like for you. And if you'd rather reach out directly, you can always email me at coachbetty at yourparentingstory.com. I would love to hear from you. And I want you all to comment, what phrase did you grow up hearing that you do not want your kids to learn? I am excited to hear some of those. Maybe some of those can give me inspiration of the ones that I can get out away from. And on our next episode, we have one of the biggest reasons that parents seek out parent coaching, and that's because they want to be cycle breakers, right? They want something different for their children. They want to change the patterns that have been passed down for generations. But interestingly, that same idea can also be one of the reasons parents hesitate to start the work, because the phrase cycle breakers can sound enormous and it can feel like you've been asked to fix everything that came before you. And for many parents, that can feel overwhelming or threatening to their nervous system. And on our next episode, oh, let's do a little brum. I am actually going to get in the hot seat with Ellie, and we are going to talk about what generational softening really looks like in real life. Ellie is going to walk us through what it actually looks like to work with a parenting coach. And I am so excited and that you guys get to see what we do behind the scenes and how can we apply the things that we just talked about here. So for that last episode is going to be a very human, very vulnerable episode. I want you all to turn in to see what we come up with and what comes through. I'm excited. And thanks for watching us and joining us today. I want you to know that we are here as your support and as your guides through everything parenting. From twos to teens, you got this. Bye. See you on the next one.